Welcome back to Q-Tronics, guys. Today we're going to be looking at the Analogue 3D and why I think it's not just a cash grab by Analogue. Yes, I know in the past Analogue have had their ups and downs, DAC support and obviously adapters for the pocket, but ultimately I think Analogue do make good devices. Right guys, now a word from our sponsor, me. Sponsor my own shit. Not sure if you're aware, but my channel started off with modding and fixing and has now started to progress to news as I want to be able to cover both. So, as I'm on the push to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be doing a giveaway when I hit 1,000 subscribers, and this will be a worldwide giveaway. I'm happy to post it wherever it is, and I say it. So, what is it I'm going to give away at 1,000 subs? Well, I'm going to be giving away a modded Nintendo Switch Lite that I will have fixed myself. It won't be this one, but it'll be one just like it that I will have fixed. So yeah, as you can see, Hecati's playing on it. So it'll be fully modded, it'll be working. I'll bang Hall effect sticks in as well, so there'll be no stick drift. So if that is something you're interested in, subscribe to the channel. And once I get past 1,000 subscribers, I'll drop a video showing you how you can enter. So subscribe and hit that notification bell. I just don't want to miss the chance to win a modded Nintendo Switch Lite. Right, cheers guys. I have two Analogue pockets here, so clearly I like some of the stuff they do. First of all, I'm going to dig into what the Analogue 3D is. In case you've had your head under a rock for the last few days and not seen anyone else's video, I will go through and explain what it is, and then I'll timestamp where I cut over to why I think it's worth it, and I think you're going to want to stick around for that. You might have an original N64, but to get it to the same level as the Analogue 3D, I think you'll find it's quite a bit difficult. So anyway, without further ado, let's dig into what Analogue are offering with the 3D, and then we'll move on to the other stuff. As I said, timestamps below. So then guys, as we go to the Analogue site, we're greeted with it. The future is here. Now, the future is here if the future's, 25 years ago. But it is what it is. So let's dig into this. So, introducing Analogue 3D, the future is here. A reimagining of the N64 in 4K resolution, 10 times the resolution of the original N64, the first and perhaps greatest multiplayer system of all time. Analogue 3D is 100% compatible with every original N64 game ever made, region free, which is important, Bluetooth LE, dual band Wi-Fi, 4 original style controller ports, entirely new next generation Analogue hardware featuring 3D OS, engineered entirely in FPGA, no emulation. Now, firstly, no emulation is a bit, technically FPGA is a form of emulation. It's a very, 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 very low down, but you're trying to emulate the original hardware. So you could argue it's not the original hardware, so it is an emulation of sorts, but we're talking 99.99999% of what the original was. So yeah, I just find it funny when they say no emulation. It's like, technically not true. Right, let's carry on. I mean, as you can see, it looks glorious. I've pre-ordered one of these. I was so shocked this morning when I went on and it was still available. I'm like, wow, why has no one bought these? But the white one's gone. The black one's still there though. So as it says, 100% compatibility. For the first time ever, Analogue 3D represents a milestone in video game preservation. It's not only the world's first reimagining of the N64, but the world's first 100% compatible recreation of the N64. Analogue spent nearly 4 years engineering it in FPGA. No more incompatibilities found in software emulation like input lag, graphic audio inaccuracies, time frame rate issues, and more. For the first time, you can re-experience the N64 exactly as it was meant to be without compromise. It's interesting that I say there's no input lag, because technically, I believe the way things used to work on like an old school TV or a CRT monitor is because of how they worked. There was no input lag, but as we've moved to LCDs and stuff, there's always a little bit of lag. It might only be 10 milliseconds, but it's still there. And obviously, they're pushing Bluetooth, and as we all know, Bluetooth does have input lag. So it's interesting. It'll be really interesting to get my hands on this and actually see what the input lag actually is like. The unmistakable signature and soul of the CRT on your HD TV in 4K. Unlike its 2D processors, the N64 wasn't just about pixels. The original hardware's distinctive approach to rendering polygons and textures depends on the CRT far more critically than simpler 2D systems. Even game developers had to leverage the interplay between the hardware and the CRT to achieve harmony. While a few modern upscalers have transformed the 2D era of video games with pixel-perfect clarity, the N64 demands something far more radical, the unmistakable essence of a CRT. Analogue 3D brings true CRT reference quality to your HD TV in 4K. Experience the N64 with unmatched authenticity and zero lag. It's the N64 reborn. Analogue 3D's original display modes are meticulously reproduced, virtually indistinguishable recreations of CRT displays, capturing the warmth, depth, and texture of every frame. The soft glow of phosphor and vibrant colours unite with immersive scanlines and shadow masks. This isn't just upscaling, it's an unprecedented transformation. Now, as I've clearly mentioned there many times, they're trying to go for that CRT experience. And honestly, if Analogue have done it, fair play to them. I've got a RetroTink 4K here, which is what they were on about in that thing there, where they're saying was massive, which is what they were on about in there when they were talking about upscalers that can do the impossible. This is probably the best upscaler on the market for retro consoles. I say probably. This is the best upscaler. But with that best title comes other issues, which I'll get onto later. So yeah, hope if they can really make it look like an N64 on an LCD, it'll be amazing. So they're then going to explain how the N64 was the gold standard of multiplayer at the time with 4 pads connectivity. And obviously, Analogue are trying to bring back the joy of 4 pads. Not only that, 8-Bit Do are bringing out their own controller, which looks different. And it's weird that I say it looks different, because obviously the N64 controller was mental anyway. So me imagining it into a normal pad shape is going to be interesting. I can't wait to get my hands on one of these as well, just to try it out, just to see how it feels. Because that B and A button just feel like they're going to be in a funny place, but it'll be interesting nonetheless. And then we get onto the 3DOS, which is obviously what Analogue are trying to push massively. 3DOS is an evolution of Analogue OS, the definitive scholarly operating system for playing and experiencing an entire era of video games, redesigned in 4K exclusively for Analogue 3D. Loaded with features uniquely crafted for the N64, developed for everyone who understands that the details define the experience. 3DOS sets the standard for exploring the depths of the N64. And as you can see here, if this is what they deliver, I'll be very surprised, because Analogue are a bit up and down, but I think they will, and this looks awesome. Just being able to go through and look at your library that you've played previously. Obviously, there's screenshots here as well. I wonder if they've done some magic to get save states, because obviously it does say save states over here. So that'll be quite interesting how they get off the cart and back on. And save states have some issues with the real-time clock stuff that's in certain games. So it'd be interesting to see if they've managed to get around that. Obviously, the one thing that this all mentions is FPGA. We're preserving video game history of FPGA hardware. Analogue 3D was developed to achieve unparalleled compatibility, engineering directly into a 220K LE Ulterior Cyclone 10GX, the most powerful FPGA analog has ever used in a product. We spent 4 years developing a perfect way to experience the N64 in FPGA for absolute accuracy. N64 is infamous for its difficulties in software emulation. 100% compatibility has never been achieved, until now. Analogue 3D is designed to preserve video game history with the respect it deserves. We go through all the technical specifications and the price there, which is $249, which I think is a steal. And like I said, we're going to get onto that. The one thing this does say at the very end, though, if I remember right, somewhere it says FPGA. It does say there'll be no open FPGA for this, which is what people can play ROMs with on the Pocket. So that's interesting. It might get hacked, but there'll be a solution to that. If you don't want to own all the games, but you still want to play on something like the original hardware, there's always a solution. Obviously, we have the X7 here, which is the Everdrive 64 X7 made by, how do I say this? Crix, best in the business, basically. So there's ways around it. So, right, now we've spoken about the Analogue, we're going to cut over to why I think it's an absolute steal at $250, which sounds mental, really. So let's jump over. So as I said, at the time of recording this, the black one is still in stock. I can't believe it's still in stock. I got on at 4 o'clock UK time and bought it immediately. I knew I wanted one, even though I've got other stuff around it. So yeah, anyway, let's dig into it. So it's $250. It was $50 delivery to me, and I'm probably going to have to pay another 20% on top for tax reasons. So probably looking around $360 for me, $370, which is quite a lot of money. But here's the kicker. So if we actually factor in what it would take to get an original N64 to produce what this is going to produce, I think you'll see why this is an absolute steal. Unless you have a CRT TV, obviously then it doesn't matter because you can just play it on that. So if we look on eBay for an average N64 price with just the N64 and the expansion pack, you're probably talking somewhere in the region of about $60 to $80 for a good one. I've picked up an N64 with an expansion pack in the UK for £20, which is about 30. It was about $25 to $30. Absolute steal that was, I'm not going to lie. So okay, so we're talking 80 for the console. So we're already eating in, unless you've got one, into that 250. Next, what you'll need to match what Analogue have done is an Ultra PIF. Now this basically allows you to play PAL or NTSC games. Now, lots of my audience are American, so they might go, oh, I don't want to play a PAL game, I don't really care. But sometimes the revision on a PAL game is better than the revision on an NTSC game, and vice versa. Obviously, I'm in the UK, so I'm going to want to play some NTSC games, especially some of the Japanese ones, which are NTSC. So you would need an Ultra PIF. Now, first things first, as you can see, this is a circuit board that needs soldering onto the console. And not only that, it's not cheap. We're talking £100, which is about $130. And then you'd need to pay someone to solder it on. So you're probably talking closer to $200 there to get this fixed on, which again, now you're already at the same price as the base for Analogue 3D. Now, I know in America you'll get taxed on top of that and stuff, so, you know, we'll keep going. But say you just want to have the original hardware and you don't care about playing your own cartridge games, you want to just play some ROMs and stuff, that's where the EverDrive comes in, which is what I mentioned earlier on. Now, I'll show that on the screen as well. Basically, this is what you can play all your ROMs from. It has save states, all that good stuff. This is $159. Now, I imagine if you were buying the Analogue one, you'd still buy this. So I'm not including this in the price. This is just this would work. But the key thing here is this does let the region switch happen. So if you have one of these and you don't want to care about playing original carts, you just back up your cartridges onto the X7. You can do away with the PIF and just pay the $159. So if we take away the PIF and add the $159, we're still in that $220 region. So we're still close to what a normal N64 would cost you anyway. So I'll carry on because there's more. Obviously, Analogue 3D pumps out in 4K, which is fantastic. I imagine you'll be able to pump out in 1080p and maybe even 480 if you really wanted to. It'd be nice to see if there's some display settings there. But then we're on to the RetroTink 4K. Now this, as I mentioned, is the best in the business. This sets you back $750. Now, if you're only buying one console, it's probably not worth buying. Well, I say it's not worth buying this. I personally think it's worth buying this just to play anything old. But say you only wanted the N64, what can you do? There are other OCSS style things and upscalers. For example, we could get the Morph 4K, which will definitely upscale from a Nintendo with a pack-a-punch cable. But if you want to go for that perfect plug and HDMI in and not have to worry, you would then actually be looking, again from Pixel FX, their RetroGem. Now this, again, as you can see, needs installing. This requires decent soldering. I say decent soldering. It's quite an advanced piece of soldering. I personally could do this, but it's still costly. And now if you want to get even close to what Analogue are going to be offering, you would need their shiny version, which pumps out 1440p. And that, unfortunately, is setting you back $200 near enough. So now can you all of a sudden see, to get an N64 to play in the same clarity as the Analogue 3D, you're already over $400. And then if you wanted it to 4K, you're going to have to buy something like the Morph 4K or the RetroTink. Now, I believe the Morph 4K, if it's still for sale, is about $200, $300. I'm trying to find where they list it. Let's have a look. There you go. $275 is the Morph. So again, this is not as good as the RetroTink, but it would still be good and get you to 4K. And Pixel FX's HDMI out will plug into this. But If you're buying one of these upscalers, you're probably not buying a HDMI mod, which means you then need a pack-a-punch cable. Just bear with me. So if you were just getting an upscaler, like the Retro, Tink, or the Morph, you'd still need one of these cables, which gives you the best possible signal out. These retail about £50, so you're talking about $60, I think it is, maybe a bit less, maybe about $55. But again, you're still well past $450. Plus, for the not so good scaler of the Morph versus the Tink, you're at about $700 to get an original N64 working. Now, yes, $300 of those dollars would allow other old consoles to be plugged in and upscaled, but you're at a crazy amount of money for what Analogue are offering for £250. For what Analogue are offering for $250 plus your shipping and all the other little bits that you need for tax. So overall, I think Analogue here have made an absolute bargain of a product. Even if it only works as an N64 and you can't play anything else on it, I think it's still I think it's still good. The EverDrive that I mentioned here before will technically allow you to emulate SNES games, so you can play some of the older stuff on there, but there's a chance this might be hacked and allow Open FPGA, because as mentioned, it uses their best FPGA ever. Now I have a Mister, and what this is an FPGA console, an FPGA emulation device basically, similar to what the N64 does. You can basically program this to work like the original piece of hardware. Now this can do N64 games, obviously compatibility issues arise, but also you can't plug your original peripherals in without buying extra things, doing other things, and you've got to hope whoever makes the core for these supports those things, whereas the Analogue 3D is going to be supported straight out the back. It's going to allow you to plug your original controllers straight into it. So overall, this is why I bought one of these. Bear in mind, I've got an N64 that I'm going to install the Ultra PIF in. I'm going to install an HDMI mod in. So then when I get this Analogue 3D, I'm going to have an original N64 and an Analogue. I'm going to put them side by side and show you. But I'm just saying, I don't think this was a cash grab from Analogue. I think what Analogue have done here is brilliant. And as I said, I bought this immediately as soon as it came out. I was on the computer waiting for 4 o'clock my time so I could buy it. And it seems I didn't need to because they're still in stock. So if it's something you're teetering on the edge about and you're going, oh, do I want one, do I not want? If you want one, I think this is going to be the best way to play the N64 as of now. Unless you already have all of the other stuff already, then go for this. If you've got a Retro Tink and you've got an N64, it's probably not worth it, to be honest, because you can get an EverDrive and do everything you need to do. You can have that region-free support. But if you don't have those things, which I know a lot of people don't, I think this is a steal and it's definitely worth it. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Hopefully that's given you some good information on what the Analogue 3D is and why I've bought one and why I think anyone who's after one of these kinds of consoles should buy one. So let me know in the comments, are you going to be buying an Analogue 3D? Do you have any other Analogue devices? Do you have an Analogue DAC and wish it actually worked with something? Let me know. Anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by. I'll catch you later.